I lost the hydraulics. Why the am I so unlucky?
Charles Leclerc, the one who is destined to lead Ferrari to their next championship, the one who bleeds Ferrari, who has the talent, the ability, and the support to achieve everything he's ever dreamed of, just can't. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Charles Leclerc has been trying to win with Ferrari for the past 6 years, and things go wrong so often that at one point, you really have to question whether he is just the unluckiest Ferrari driver in history, or whether at this point, it's a curse. Charles Leclerc is undoubtedly the future of Ferrari, and they've just reaffirmed this by choosing him over Carlos Sainz to pair alongside Lewis Hamilton come 2025. But even though he is the future of the team, that doesn't make his life within the team any easier. There have been countless races where something has gone wrong. Either the strategy call is off, the car has a failure, Charles Leclerc pushes too hard and ends up crashing. It's always something. Instead of watching a driver achieve his full potential, we're slowly watching his spirits break, and that flame within his eyes is disappearing as well. I just want to make it very clear that I am a Charles Leclerc fan, and this is one of the hardest videos I've ever had to make. This video comes after years of suffering and living in fear anytime I see Charles Leclerc come on over the radio. So if you do enjoy this video, or maybe a fellow traumatized Leclerc and Ferrari fan yourself, consider subscribing to help me reach my goal of 150 subscribers by the end of the month. Done? Let's go. Charles Leclerc's journey with Ferrari has been almost poetic. After spending the first season of his F1 career at Sauber in 2018, he was then signed on for the main Ferrari team from 2019 and has been with the team ever since. All throughout his young career, he was very successful, winning multiple different championships on his way to F1. Ferrari believed they had found the perfect driver to carry them into the next era of Formula 1, and with Leclerc's love and loyalty towards Ferrari, it felt like a match made in heaven. The only problem is that I don't think any other driver has had more bad luck than Leclerc has had with Ferrari. In 2019, his maiden season with Ferrari, Leclerc ended the season with 3 DNFs and 10 podiums. One of those do-not finishes was at Monaco. Monaco and Leclerc is a whole other discussion where if you didn't believe in superstitions before, you will after unraveling that one. But this was only part of the story in that 2019 season. In his second race with Ferrari, at Bahrain, he began the race on pole position, and after losing the race lead and later taking it back, he lost power, which led to him falling down the grid, eventually somehow recovering and ending up on the podium. This was just one of the many examples we would go on to see of Ferrari failing Leclerc over the years. In 2020, Leclerc had a fresh start and was no longer a rookie for the Scarlet car. But we all know what was going on in the world in 2020, and that led to a mashed up season with races and a schedule we wouldn't normally expect. But none of that matters to Ferrari or Leclerc, who continue their run of bad luck. With 4 DNFs and 2 podiums throughout the season, this can be seen as a major downgrade compared to the previous season he had in 2019. One of the most heartbreaking crashes of the season was at Monza, where he had won the race in front of the Tifosi just 1 year earlier in 2019. After the 2020 season, people started talking. It was clear that Leclerc was a very talented, extremely quick driver, but he also made mistakes. And everyone knows that to be able to compete for a championship in Formula 1, you need to be close to flawless. With a new teammate in Carlos Sainz accompanying him for the 2021 season, Leclerc had to prove that he still is what Ferrari envisioned him to be, a future world champion. 2021 was a tough season for Leclerc. In fact, it felt just like every season was worse than the one before. He ended up with 1 DNS, 1 DNF, and only 1 podium for the year. He was also beaten in the standings by his new teammate, Carlos Sainz, in his first season at Ferrari. 2021 saw the continuation of his curse at his home Grand Prix, Monaco. This one was especially heartbreaking, as he had qualified on pole position for the race and had a drive shaft failure during the formation lap, which led to him being forced to retire from the race. In Hungary, his other DNF for the season, Stroll crashed into him, essentially ending his race before it even began, which was no fault of his own. We all remember 2021 for the fierce championship battle between Verstappen and Hamilton, but at the same time, Leclerc was struggling, and Ferrari were failing him. Everyone knew that they as a team needed to do better if they wanted to achieve the success they were hoping to. But then, something magical happened at the start of the 2022 season. With the new set of regulations into play, all the teams were on level playing field, and Ferrari took advantage of that. Bahrain 2022 marked the first race of the new regulations that were introduced in Formula One. As with any period of change in new regulations, there is a cloud of uncertainty as to whether you have gone down the right developmental path and chosen the right concept, while also being unsure as to what other teams have been doing. Ferrari came out with a bang, finishing the race with Leclerc taking the victory and Carlos Sainz finishing second, resulting in a 1-2 finish for the team. A dream start to the season, with Leclerc even getting his first perfect weekend in Australia. He started on pole, finished first, and set the fastest lap while leading every lap of the race. Early on in the season, Leclerc had built himself a nice cushion as championship leader. But all good things must come to an end, and for Leclerc, they came crashing down. In Barcelona, Leclerc had a failure while leading the race, leading to him having his first DNF of the season. The very next race, at his home race, Leclerc managed to get pole position in Monaco, and his race was ruined by a terrible strategy call from Ferrari, seeing him drop down to 4th place in a race he believed he could have easily won. The very next race in Azerbaijan, Leclerc once again had a failure while leading the race, leading to his second DNF of the season. While these disasters were piling up for Ferrari, Red Bull and Max Verstappen were cleaning up any mistakes or uncertainties they may have had at the beginning of the season, and were now dominating. A couple races later, Leclerc lost control of his SF22 while leading the race in France, a point many believed to be when Leclerc and Ferrari no longer had a chance to win the championship. The rest of the season was more or less just as disappointing for Leclerc. Questionable strategy calls by his strategist and mistakes made by pushing too hard. Leclerc ended up finishing second in the Constructors' Championship, narrowly beating Sergio Perez in the final race of the season at Abu Dhabi. If we only look at the results of the season as a whole, we can conclude that it was a pretty good year for Ferrari. They finished second overall in the Constructors, their driver also finished second in the Driver Championship. It was a good year for Ferrari, no? Well, unfortunately, that doesn't tell the true story of how that season went. Ferrari were in pure control of the season at the beginning. They had a nice lead on the championship and they let it slip away. They were lacking in many aspects rather than improving over the course of the season, and in fact seemed to be getting worse and worse as the season progressed. Leclerc had just had the best chance he'd had so far in his F1 career to become a driver champion, and the team let it slip away. Again, things needed to change, and that's just what Ferrari did. Ferrari decided to take a new approach. They fired their team principal, Matteo Binotto, and hired former Sauber team principal, Fred Vasseur. Fred Vasseur was set to bring a new dawn to Ferrari, to fix the mistakes the team were making. Add to this the fact that Vasseur had already worked with Leclerc at Sauber. This seemed like a solid hire. Vasseur knew that he couldn't turn things around instantly, and it would be a long-term project. In 2023, the main goal for Ferrari was to lay the foundation for future seasons to come. Red Bull, on the other hand, weren't waiting around for anyone. They dominated the season, winning 21 out of the 22 races. Although they weren't winning races, this didn't mean Leclerc had a break from his bad luck. He started the season off with a DNF in Bahrain, caused by an electrical failure with 18 laps to go, having to pull over while he was in a podium position. On top of this, they had already passed their allowed electronics components and had to take a 10-place grid penalty in Saudi Arabia for the next race. This was one of the earliest engine penalties ever seen in F1. In Monaco, Charles received a penalty for impeding Norris during qualifying because his engineer failed to communicate that Norris was on a hot lap. In Hungary, Leclerc had no radio, no drink, and his pit crew added the icing on the cake by giving him a nice, slow 9-second stop. Oh, and Charles also added a 5-second penalty to this by speeding in the pit lane. What a great weekend at the office. In Barcelona, Charles complained that his car was undrivable, leading to him being knocked out in Q1. In Canada, the strategist went against Leclerc's wishes, opting for an intermediate tire while everyone else was running softs, and switching him onto the softs just as it was starting to rain again, leading to another early qualifying exit. In Austin, Charles was the only driver running a one-stop strategy, and of course, it didn't work. Later in Brazil, we had the famous do not start, where he spun out during the formation lap, which was caused by a hydraulic failure. This led to the "why am I so unlucky" message that still stings to this day. There are many more examples that we could nitpick, but whenever a driver hits the trifecta of a do not finish, a do not start, and a disqualification all in the same season, well, you get the picture. Okay, sure. We know that Ferrari is largely at fault for their shortcomings, especially when it comes to Leclerc. But it would only be fair to put some of this blame on him too, no? We may call it a curse, but could Leclerc be bringing some of this by his own doing? The prime example of this would be at the French Grand Prix in 2022, when he was leading the race and had a legitimate chance of winning, only to lose his concentration and slam the car into the barriers, ending his weekend. The Q3 quali lap at Monaco in 2021, where he was already on pole and would have gotten to start in first place if he had not tried to improve his time and taken unnecessary risks. Q3 at the 2023 Miami Grand Prix, where Leclerc lost it in turn 7, spinning into the barriers. The fact of the matter is that Leclerc makes mistakes simply due to the fact that he is pushing too hard. It is hard to fault the driver for trying to extract the most out of the car. To make matters worse, Ferrari had previously gone in a developmental direction which didn't suit Leclerc's driving style. Leclerc loves an oversteery car, and Ferrari opting for an understeery car didn't help matters. But Ferrari have since changed directions, and at the start of the 2024 season, Leclerc has said that he is already finding the car much more drivable than last year's. Charles Leclerc is an incredible driver. In fact, if Max Verstappen didn't exist, he would already be a world champion. But Max Verstappen does exist, he is amazing, and Ferrari need to be better if they even want a shot at discussing a world championship for Leclerc. At the end of the day, a curse only has an impact on you if you choose to acknowledge it and believe its existence. Charles may have had many unlucky moments in the past, but he has to go into every weekend believing it's going to be perfect, that everything is going to work out exactly the way they planned it. Ferrari have given Leclerc another sign of fate, signing him to another long-term deal, and now it's time for the pair to go and write history together. Thank you guys for watching this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Is Ferrari at fault for Leclerc's shortcomings, or is some of it his doing as well? As always, if you did enjoy the video, please make sure to like and subscribe because it does help out, and you get to stay updated for every new video that I drop, F1 content weekly. Thank you guys again, and see you next time. Bye.